Thank you everybody for joining us. So I'm JC Ellsworth. I'm with the Gallagher team in North America and excited for tonight. We have a couple of different North American customers joining us to share some of their experience. But then the real reason we like to have these customer webinars is just to give our customers a chance to share their ideas. So we know the ranchers and farmers that are using eShepherd are really the ones doing the innovation. And so we just want a place where everybody can ask their questions and share their ideas. So the first half, we'll hear from a couple of different customers, and then we will dive into some Q&A. So with that, if you can go to the Q&A, you'll see the little question mark icon in your Teams. Please put your questions in the Q&A, and then at the end, we should have plenty of time to answer any of the questions and kind of just have a discussion around all of those. All right, and so as I mentioned, you're kind of hearing from the North American team this evening. So I'm JC, you'll also be hearing from Cheyenne Lamley, and then we also have Miranda Peters on our customer success team. And just a little about myself before we dive in to our other customers. So I've been with Gallagher since August, and I actually ended up on the eShepherd team as I had inquired about virtual fencing myself. And so my husband and I ranch in western South Dakota, which is in the northern Great Plains region. We are in a pretty unique environment, a very brittle environment. And as you can see, just pretty interesting terrain. And we run Angus cattle, cow-calf operation. So we grow the calves to about 800 pounds and then sell our calves. And this is a new to us operation. So we've been here about 5 years. And it's presented many challenges to us, including figuring out how to kind of manage our grazing in this terrain. But then also you can see on the right-hand side, fencing along this river. And so this was actually my Friday night just last week, fencing the river. And despite what my sweet husband thinks, I do not love spending my Friday nights fencing this river. And so we don't have our eShepherd yet, but it's coming soon. And so it's just been exciting to get to hear from the customers that are using it, and also just to get to be a part of this innovation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kat with the eShepherd marketing team with just a little update on some social media.
Yes, so I'm excited to share that we have actually started our eShepherd social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. So to date, we have just had our presence on the Gallagher sites. So now we have a dedicated social channel where we're hoping that there'll be a lot more interaction from our customers. We can share a lot more of your stories and how you're using the product, and yeah, just really learn a lot more from each other. So if you just search up eShepherd, you should be able to locate the pages, but I will also send a follow-up email after this webinar with a direct link for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. Good stuff. And I think we'll be sharing lots more stories for customers to kind of hear. So if you have great stories, please share them with us. But then also just a good way to kind of tune in and hear from other customers and see what people are doing. All right, so our first customer is Mary White. So Mary, if you can unmute yourself and share your camera if you're able. Mary is located in the southern U.S. in Oklahoma and has been an eShepherd customer since, probably going on 9 or 10 months now. And Mary has a pretty unique situation. She is using eShepherd on all different classes of cattle. She's got it on bulls, she's got it on yearlings, she's got it on cows, and so excited to hear more from her today. Mary, can you say hello? We might be having some mic issues. And while we work on that, I was wondering, Brandon Arpan, are you online? I think he might have some slides he was going to share, so we could pivot that way. Okay. Do you want to share your screen, Brandon, and I'll stop sharing?
Yep, I sure can.
Okay, while Brandon is getting that ready, I will go ahead and introduce him. So I am Cheyenne Lamley. I am also a part of our Gallagher team here in North America, a part of the eShepherd team. So Brandon is joining us. He is from Southeast Montana. Brandon has several side jobs. He manages 2 ranching operations. They have a cow-calf herd that they run year-round with about 150 pairs. And then they also have a summer herd totaling 725 animals. So they currently have installed 713 eShepherd neck bands on their ranch. And Brandon is always pushing the boundaries of what eShepherd is capable. So I'm excited, and I think you'll learn something from Brandon as he tells us a little bit about how he's utilizing the eShepherd technology. So Brandon, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
All right, so can you guys see a screen that looks like some pasture and eShepherd app?
Yes.
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. So quickly before I hit play, what this is going to be, it is us training a herd of 500 yearlings that were born last year. You'll see basically a group of 166 animals fled in on the 27th of May. And then the very next day, you'll see 251 more animals fled in. There'll be green dots that then change to light blue. And then on the 29th of May, you'll see 86 more kind of flood in. So basically over 3 days, we were offloading them from the trucks. We were putting on the neck bands. We did purposely fit them a little bit looser than what eShepherd normally recommends. And that's just because where they'll be grazing, they are miles and miles from the nearest set of corrals. And I'm essentially going to be testing how many animals could potentially lose a neckband before it starts to cause chaos, because it's so far to get to corrals to be able to change the fitment, every 6 to 8 weeks or so. So that is why we did it the way we've done it for fitment. And you'll actually see about 2 or 3 dots that do not move, and those are just dots where those animals lost their neck band. So I'll go ahead and hit play. There's the first 166 animals as they come in. Here in a moment, you'll actually see the second larger group come in. And you might see some other dots moving around. Those are different herds that we have on our place at the moment. So you can actually see there for the 28th and 29th, as we now have the full 500 in there, they are basically starting to test those boundaries for the very first time. And that's the active virtual boundaries, the solid orange line. The dotted lines are inactive virtual boundaries. So I'm doing it on a 24-hour rotation where every 24 hours a new chunk is opened up. And within the 40, normally I wouldn't do it again quite this fast, but due to pasture limitations, we've had to do it kind of this way. And I should have also said, and I apologize, I'll actually play it again. The north-south straight line, that's a physical fence. The bottom, like east-west line, that's a physical fence. That gentle curve that you see that actually changes, that's the one and only virtual boundary. I'm kind of calling this the bubble training method, because I don't really have a good pasture that has 3 physical sides, and I can only make one side virtual boundary. So I was testing this to see if it worked. And honestly, in the first 48 hours, we saw about a 95% containment rate. And the next like 24 hours, so this would be at the 72-hour window, it was still holding steady at 95%. And then as we're now getting into the 1st, the 2nd, and 3rd of June, we're seeing about a 98% containment rate. And that 2% that does bump out and escape, they're back in within an hour or so before it can even notify us.
That's impressive,
Yeah.
Brandon. I've got a question for you. Knowing a little bit about the program and how you've gone from, effectively 100 or so neck bands to hundreds, how do you train so many animals and, to be able to get them to adapt to that system?
So I can say now from experience of training multiple mobs of yearlings and multiple mobs of cows that yearlings are easier. They just learn faster. I mean, you saw basically the very first group of 166, they had 2 days before the virtual boundary moved, but that second group of 251, they had 24 hours before the virtual boundary moved. And that's largely because I didn't draw them big enough. And didn't catch it until we were basically live and going. But even then, it went very well, like absolutely no problems. So yearlings learn super fast. Cows are a little bit slower, and I'm actually training another group right now. They've never had virtual fencing on, taking it a little bit slower with them, and that's partly because they've got calves in that's this time of year. We actually So we started with about 100 animals, trained them, and a little bit less, and then we bought 50 during the winter, and we had actually gone down to about 60 animals with eShepherd on then. And the 50 that we bought, we never trained them. We just plopped them in with the other group, going, I wonder if they'll learn from the other animals, and they did. Like they had learned within 48 hours, max of about 4 days of fully what eShepherd meant, and they were trained, they were ready to go. We there was no like training regiment. They just were following the other cows and queuing off of them.
Okay, that's impressive. I mean, and I just want to emphasize to those who are online that we do recommend training. It is really important, just so that the animals adapt well and you get the best out of the system in the early phases. I will stress that Brandon has been using the eShepherd system for quite some time, and I know that he's so invested that he's watching these animals all the time. So I'm pretty comfortable with hearing the way that you did that, Brandon, and it's certainly impressive. And so those stockers, so in the United States, a stocker animal is what we might call a yearling down in the Southern Hemisphere. But those stockers didn't have like any training on an electric fence or anything. You basically just put them into the scenario.
Some did. Some did have some exposure to electric fence, but there was a lot of others who had never touched it ever in their life. And I would definitely agree, like go through the eShepherd training regimen that they recommend. They have tutorials and stuff to really help walk through the process, because that really helped us the first go around. We learned a lot of valuable lessons, and we actually kind of use it the second go around. And once we started to get a little bit more comfortable with the training regimen, and that's when I kind of came up with this, well, can I do this bubble concept, because I don't really have a pasture that can train 500 yearlings the proper kind of eShepherd recommended way. And that's where we started playing with some variables, hoping that it didn't just become chaos. And thankfully, we were able to show that it went pretty well.
Cool.
Very well.
And I've got another question for Brandon, unless JC was to say that Mary was ready to go. No, she's shaking her head. So Brandon, obviously you've got a number of animals on the go there. Maybe just explain the labor situation. How many people do you have at hand, and in particular, because you work remotely as well, is that right?
I do work remotely, and then I've also got the side job of the military. So I've kind of got 3 jobs going at the moment: rancher, a consultant, and then the third one being military. So I do travel a lot for the military. I'm actually tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm leaving for Kansas, where I'll be for the next few days, and then I'll be back. And sometimes I even go to other countries. But with being able to get on the app, it makes it just incredibly easy to manage the herd the way that we do. And I would say I'm primarily the one that's getting on to the app, drawing virtual paddocks, managing the herds, but I'm not the only one. There's essentially 4 of us in the operation: my father, business partner Jacob, my wife Samantha, and then myself. Everyone can get on the app. My father's not quite so adept at it. He more or less just looks at where the things are to make sure everything's where they're supposed to be. But he's definitely like learning. He's getting there. And in the past, we've had different issues, come up. And if I've been gone, I've just been able to call them, hey, I think I see this. They're able to go deal with it. So it's really taken our labor in managing the herd, from many, many hours during the week, talking at least 8 hours, if not even more, depending on the time of year, to like 20 minutes an hour each week. And that's about it.
Cool. Very nice. I'm messaging JC in the background, and in the eShepherd team, we are very good at adapting to conditions. So we are going to bring Mary into the call, and the way we're going to do that is that JC is going to share her mobile phone close to the microphone on JC's PC. So we may not see Mary, but hopefully we'll be able to hear Mary. How does that sound, JC?
Yeah.
Okay, Mary, we are ready for you. So we'll keep this a little shorter than we were maybe originally planning, but we know that you still have lots of good stuff to share. So I guess to kick off, can you just share kind of what made you pursue virtual fencing from what you were traditionally doing?
I had been interested in it the first time I ever saw it. And I even used another system before eShepherd was available in the US. I used a different system for about 3 years. It was really close, but it just had a lot of shortcomings, and the eShepherd system has worked really, really well. Mostly, we've been doing rotational grazing for a long time, but our pasture size was big, and they graze certain areas, and we're also interested in the regenerative agriculture. So I've been strip grazing my yearlings with electric fencing, and I really like the results, but the process was very time consuming. I wanted to graze my cows this way also, but because of the way our farm is located, and there's a lot of lease roads that run through it, and invariably the pond is on one side of the pasture and the bulk of the pasture is on the other side of the road, and I couldn't fence across them, and it just made it virtually impossible for me to do things, not to mention the extreme amount of time that it would take to build electric fence, and I mostly do that by myself. So that's kind of where we got started with it.
Yep, awesome. When you and I were talking, you had mentioned that there was maybe, I guess, part of your grazing season that you were moving cattle multiple times a week, or was it maybe even during one day? Can you share a little more on what that looks like for you?
Well, I started out with a set of replacement heifers to test, how the system would work. And it was the end of the season, and it was really dry, but I grazed them. I gave them a new strip every single day, and they grazed it really well, and ate the pasture down much more evenly than they would have if I'd have just let them in there. And so then I really liked how that worked. So I had ordered them for my cows, but I didn't really need them on my cows because we were feeding them hay and they weren't really grazing per se. So we put them on our yearlings that we keep, our stockers, and I had already had them grazing with electric fence. I'd build a strip across the pasture and then just ladder it across. I'd put electric fence on each side and just put cross fences and take one up every day. Well, when I got the collars on the calves, or the neck bands on the calves, I just used that cross fence, the ladder rung, and they figured it out. Like what Brandon said, the calves catch on really, really fast. They had it in 2 days. They weren't crossing that cross fence. So anyway, after we sold them, we put them on the cows, and we've only had them on them about 2 months.
Okay. Awesome. Mary, I always get the question asking about eShepherd on bulls, and you do have some on your bulls, is that right?
Yes.
Can you just share experience there?
We did have to get the longer chains for the bulls because the regular chains were too short for them. But they've worked really well once we got everything adjusted right on them. I mostly put them on originally so I could find them, but they are they basically stay in the virtual fence. I wouldn't trust them if there was a cycling cow somewhere that they wouldn't leave, but I'm sure they would. But as a general rule, they stay right with the cows. So
awesome. Any other thoughts you want to share, Mary?
I did use them. The only time I've used them on pairs, I had them on my heifers that I was testing. They were replacement heifers. And after I had 32 of them, and after the first dozen or so calved, I split them into 2 mobs of wet and dry. And I let the wet cows go out and graze a little small paddock of winter wheat pasture. And they had to go back and water with the dry cows, but they go in and out. And I mean, it worked really, really good. And as they calved, I would just move them into the wet mob. And in that pasture, I actually had all of my stalkers on the other end of the field. And I got them as close as about 200 yards is all I got. But I only had one calf that came to the heifers, and he had lost his neck band. So the rest of them stayed in. So I was really impressed with that.
Any questions for Mary from the eShepherd team?
Yep.
Charles,
actually,
yep.
there's a comment from Sam Gall, and maybe we can ask Brandon and Mary to comment on this. But the question is, how long does it take for cows to get used to the physical feel of the collar, and do they try and rub against trees or bushes, or is it relatively comfortable?
My cows, usually when you first put them on, they will buck out of the chute and throw their head, and then they'll go over there and stand. I never have had any problem with them rubbing on the trees, except just normal scratching behavior.
Right. Brandon, same for you?
Yeah, basically I've seen cows walk out of the chute and immediately start grazing very first time you put the collar on, and I've seen others that, take 45 seconds to finish, bucking it out. Most tend to calm down in, 10 to 20 seconds or so. And then after they buck it out, so to speak, they'll go out there, and you do see them every once in a while in the first, few hours kind of toss their head because they're not used to the feel. But after the first day, they're completely used to it. We don't have a heck of a lot that they can rub on, mainly, like big sagebrush. We do have a few trees, but other than cows just scratching like they normally would scratch, they're not trying to scratch the thing off. So,
Yep, that's good. And so I'm in Ontario at the moment. I visited with some eShepherd customers who are just putting their neck bands on now. And in particular today, one guy, I felt it was necessary just to let him know that it's obviously a chute operation when you're putting a neck band on, but when they come out of the chute, they do jump around. They really do buck for like 60 seconds. And I've also noticed that once there are about 3 animals that have their neck bands on, and they've been released from the chute progressively, that actually they congregate and they all start to calm down very, very quickly. So it's interesting to watch, but there's certainly nothing going on. One comment was, when they buck around, does that mean that they're getting a pulse? And the answer is no, they're just adapting to wearing a neckband.
I think we have Mary online now.
Oh, fantastic.
So Mary, can you see that I'm sharing this picture you had sent me? Do you want to share a little about what that is?
That is in January. It's a triticated field. And in the background, those are stalkers grazing on it. And that's just where the line was.
Awesome. And as far as utilization, I remember when we first talked, you were just kind of hoping, to utilize pastures and keep them there longer. Have you seen any change in that yet, or what are your thoughts around that?
I did see it with the heifers last fall. It made a lot of difference. Right now, it's been really, really wet here, and we have a lot of pasture. And so I've been trying to move across it pretty fast, keep it fresh.
Right.
One of the questions you had asked me was about how I move them, if they move themselves or if I moved them. Most of the time, they move themselves. But if I'm going into another pasture, I will go open the gate and make them walk past me just for gentling them down and getting them used to call them, and they'll come right through.
Awesome. Mary, I remember when you first started, you called me and said you couldn't figure out why your cows were somewhere. And then you remembered you changed the virtual fences and they were actually in the right spot. But that's just kind of part of the eShepherd journey, I think, is remembering what things are going on online. So cool to see everything that you've been doing.
That takes a minute to remember, oh, I need to move them. I can't move them because I haven't changed the virtual fence. If I need to take them back to the lot or something.
Yep. So I might show your web app too, just to see what you have going on here. So I'll switch it right here. So you've kind of got lots going on. I guess one thing I was wondering is, do you use the copy feature when you're drawing your virtual fences, or what?
Yes.
I mean, just because it looks like you're opening.
Okay. That, I was so excited.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe we'll touch on that at the end too, just so people can see. But you can see, so if you're not super familiar with the web app, all these fences you can see down here are not live virtual fences, but things that Mary has drawn and likely had turned on at some point. But you can see she was, just increasing pasture sizes by little bits. So awesome feature in the web app. Awesome. Any other questions from anybody coming in?
I've got a question, JC, and it's regarding, the relatively intense looking virtual paddock design. And Mary, are you using the scheduled moves feature with that relatively intense pattern in the
Yes.
southwest there?
Yes, I was using that.
Right.
The smallest or the shortest ones there that were close together, I was doing that like every 3 or 4 hours just to test it.
Okay. And you'll have to remind me, Mary, are you using the cellular form of eShepherd, or do you have base stations?
Cellular.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
And we have customers who can do that level of intensity using the cellular form as well as the base station form. So it is a very convenient feature.
Yep. And I'm wondering now if maybe we want to hop into and have Zippo share. So someone asked about how to close fence behind the cattle, which I felt was kind of relevant to Mary's fences here. So Zippo, would you want to run through that in the web app?
Yes, I sure can. All right, let me share my screen, and I'll share our demo property and just show you how you can move your animals around on your property. So, okay. So I'll just get rid of a few things here so that we don't. Oops, sorry. All right, I hope you guys can see the web application here. Okay.
Looks really good, Zippo, and please go on. But I'll just let you know that Thomas Judd, the other speaker, has joined. So
okay.
We've got a good 10 minutes with you, and then we'll swap over to Thomas.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'll try and keep it nice and quick, but I'll use some of these demonstration mobs here on the demo property to explain how we move animals around and how we can do back fencing as well. So one of the so I'll focus in on this area here. there is a physical paddock that runs along some of these boundaries here. At the moment, this blue mob called our Angus cows, they are in this active virtual paddock here, and we are keeping them near the water sources, which are at this end of the paddock. And now a little bit further along, there is a dam in the paddock. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is how we can move our animals from this location to progressively allow them to feed into fresh pasture all the way up until we get to another water source. And at such a point, we can then start to bring a back fence in behind them. So this is done by really using feed as a motivating driving force for the animals to move forward. And we see that working really well across many properties. So it just becomes a matter of some creative virtual fence creation, which you've seen. Mary's created so many virtual fences, and we see this with many of our operators. They've got hundreds of virtual paddocks that they're using to move their animals around as they wish. So if we have a look at what the scenario is that we've set up here, I've created a sequence of virtual paddocks. So these are all in a physical paddock called the crown paddock. So I've just set up, oops, and I've just collapsed it in the crown paddock, and I have a whole sequence here of virtual paddocks that we can turn on one after the other. So at the moment, the number 2 paddock is already enabled, but just for reference, there was number 1 here. After number 2 comes number 3. So we would simply turn on this next virtual paddock that opens up this section of fresh pasture, and animals are able then to travel into this area here. And we just continue that sequence. So I'm not actually going to turn on those virtual paddocks. I'm just going to highlight them so you can get the idea of how animals will move forward. So again, another fresh section of pasture is opened up. Animals move forward and graze out this section. We continue doing this sequence where we just turn on more virtual paddocks. And notice that animals are never left uncontained in these transitions. You're just increasing the area that is available to them. And you never have to turn off virtual fences during this process either. You're just going from one active virtual paddock to the next active virtual paddock. So now we can see as we continue along in this sequence, we've now reached this new watering point where animals can come to water here. And as the animals spend more time in this part of the paddock, they won't be back here anymore. And we can start bringing in now the back fence to prevent them from being able to access this water point. That really forces them now to come over to this side and drink from this source. And we can then start to quite quickly bring the back fence in behind them as we shift them further into the fresh pasture around this side. So again, just going over the basics there, we open up fresh areas, we use that feed motivation to move animals forward, and then we can close off behind them. And really the available water sources becomes probably the limiting factor on how quickly you can move animals along and keep them from back grazing. And now we do have some customers that are really well set up with lots and lots of watering points, and they can make these types of moves a lot quicker and shift the animals quite quickly and prevent that back grazing, which allows that the regenerative growth of the resting pastures. It allows that to happen very quickly and effectively. So, and then your utilization of pastures, of course, increases significantly by being able to do that. So I hope that kind of explains the principles of how you move your animals around and how you can even muster them in this same type of system. You can then, if you've planned out your grazing well, you can rotate them around a paddock across some very large areas and have them come back to a set of yards or corrals, if you've planned out your virtual fences in advance.
Perfect. Thanks, Sibbo. And I think one of the keys there that I've been hearing from some customers that they've been learning is just always, turning on the new virtual fence rather than turning off. So the latest command you do is what will happen. So if you turn one on and then turn another off, you'll be turning it off. So if you want your virtual fences to continue be turning on, yeah, just turn them on. So
Yeah.
I think we are going to jump over this. So thank you so much, Mary, for your time, and sorry about those glitches we were having, but great insights to be gained there. And I know Mary is amazing about being willing to talk to other customers or answer any questions. So if she said something that sparked interest, let us know, and we'll be happy to connect you with Mary. And now we are going to jump to Thomas and Sarah Judd up in Canada. In Ontario. So I'll pass it off to Charles.
Thanks, JC. And so, Thomas, assuming you're there, if you can just come off mute and let us know that you can hear us and are able to speak.
Test 1 2, test 1 2.
That's loud and clear. Thank you very much. Perfect. So it's been my pleasure over the last few days to be in Canada, and I am actually in Ontario. And so Ontario is one of the provinces towards the east, just before you get into Quebec, and that green teardrop is an area called Simcoe, and that's where Thomas and Sarah are located. Is that correct, Thomas?
Yes, we are, Cheryl.
Perfect. Perfect. And Canada is an enormous country, and I can honestly say that it is very beautiful. Yep, you go, Thomas.
Very, very large indeed, yet most of us are quite close to the US border.
Sure, sure. Well, we won't hold that against you. And so Thomas and Sarah, they look after Meadowland Farms, and as you can see, there's a pretty good-looking Jersey cow there, and a bunch of other things. Thomas, do you want to just quickly describe your business?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me on. Good evening, for me at least. We at Meadowland Farms run a dairy operation, a small dairy with 50 milking Jersey cows. About 300-acre cash crop operation, as well as a 10-acre pick your own strawberries, and my wife also does 100 veggie box community supported agriculture venture. So we're quite a diverse farm, and the eShepherd collars fit very well into our operation.
Perfect. Thanks, Thomas. And as I've been driving around Ontario, particularly towards the sort of eastern side of Toronto, at the moment it's very, very green, where it's sort of the spring season moving into summer, and I'm getting the feeling that there's a lot of rainfall, and that the water table in places is actually relatively high. Is that similar to where you are?
Very much so. We actually have 2 surface water sources on our farm, and the virtual paddocks allow us to make space or only allow access at certain points where we do harvest or make use of the surface water where it's available.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I think we've got one more slide here, which is the image that you sent me today of your good-looking Jersey cows, and then we're going to move over to the web app, and we can have a little bit more of a detailed look of the property itself. So, what's the story with these Jersey cows?
Yes, and so with our dairy operation, we have some ground that would be very difficult to cash crop with. So for the past, I would say 50 years, it's been in permanent pasture. However, the terrain as well as the the surface water makes it quite difficult to fence properly. Because we're through quite a sensitive wetland area. It's actually on the official map in Ontario. The land is actually considered hazard land. So this collar method for virtual fencing makes a lot of sense for our operation and where we are.
Perfect. Great. And I'm guessing, just thinking about different breeds of cattle, that the lighter frame of the Jersey is also good for areas where there is a lot of water in terms of reducing pugging and things like that.
Yes, very happy with, and especially Jersey cows do quite well on maintaining body mass with pasture and correctly, even aggressively run pasture. And that allows us to pasture our animals, pregnant heifers as well as dry cows with the eShepherd. We in May experimented, and I think that's what the slide is. That image is the youngest that we've tried. We went down to about 250 kilograms, and made sure that we still had full function and the animal wasn't burdened. And from the image, it's pretty evident that they're still bringing the noses up very well and interested in visitors. So we haven't seen any indication or distress that way, and they're still showing full signs of mobility and testing the boundaries of the virtual paddocks as well.
Perfect. Yep. No, they certainly look pretty happy. I mean, obviously the ES1 neckband is one of the larger devices that are out there, but that's for good reason. I mean, it has 2 large solar panels, nice big battery in there, which maintains charge, and it's a long-lived device. So I'm going to quickly, and if I give my screen a refresh, we're just going to go to your property, Thomas, and we can have a bit of a look at what's going on. So hopefully you can see my screen, which is looking at your farm. And we've got 2 virtual paddocks there, which are currently turned on, as indicated by the solid orange lines. And
sorry, Charles.
Yep.
I'm still seeing the website from Meadowlynn Farms.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're sharing the right one yet.
I do appreciate the marketing, Charles.
That's right. I hope people are taking down your number.
We don't ship outside of Canada, though, unfortunately.
Ah, no good. I'll have to come over.
Hey, we're always here 8 till 8.
Yeah, I bet. Charles, maybe just stop sharing and then share again the window. I think that's what you may be busy doing. I can see, is that a little bead of sweat running down your forehead that I can see? Looks
like it might be frozen.
Yeah. I think we may have lost him.
Okay. I can share his web app. 1 second here.
Right.
All right, Thomas. So I have your web app pulled up. Can you share just a little what you have going on here?
Oh, perfect. Yes. Welcome to Simcoe, Ontario, Canada.
Love it.
We have basically 2 or 3 main old fenced areas, and so you'll see at the bottom that is our large group of pregnant heifers and dry cows. We successfully pastured them out on May 1st, and they've been in that current bottom virtual paddock now for a month. And we plan to move this group to the east, over to the left virtual paddock as well. And that happens frequently, every other day. And then they will move to, you can't really tell the topography here. However, the bottom virtual paddocks are 25% grade. So too steep to farm conventionally. However, we're using a surface water source, as well as cover. We do have coyotes that do pressure the animals, and because they're Jersey and because they're a little bit smaller, we do like to see a group of at least 15 to 20 in that group to contend with coyote pressure. And we have not tested the bottom 3 for that group yet. However, you'll notice the subdivisions and the amount of town folk that are very, very close by to the north, and we need and absolutely love the ability to tell where all of our animals are all of the time. That really is a huge bonus for us. And to see if any of our animals are in distress. The virtual paddock at the north end is very close to a busy road, and only sees our smallest animals. And that's why we're testing this brown group, which is our yearling group of 7 or 8 animals, and they're going to spend the summer on that small pasture for a couple months, and move back and forth back to the home base. Basically, if you see the black house picture there, that almost connects. And so very, very, very impressed, very happy to have up to the minute data for each animal. Very much so.
Awesome. Thomas, I'm curious, when you mentioned the predator pressure, what are you looking for in your web app to know if there's activity happening there?
We've started to generate a heat map on where they're spending the most time, and I would suggest if you have a virtual paddock that stays consistent, that information would be more beneficial for you. With constant moving, you're going to see a heat map that's consistent with constantly moving. So if we see animals that are outside of that heat map, or certainly outside of the virtual paddock, we're going to investigate immediately. But a lot of these virtual paddocks are within another or there's no physical barrier fence there, so they should, the technology on the neck bands is such that if they do need to run at full force to escape a predator, they won't be turned back until they're stopped or have evaded that predator. And so very not top of mind, but it's always in our back pocket to take a look at those things. And eShepherd certainly allows us to take more information than we ever could without checking every hour.
Awesome. Well, I think we have about 10 minutes left, so thank you, Thomas, for your time. And now we might just hop into
Oh, have we just lost JC as well? I think we have.
So Charles back and JC's dropped off.
Oh, great. Great, Charles. Have you got anything further that you wanted to add while we've got JC frozen on the screen there?
I've managed to join and I heard JC's questions about predators. Were the types of predators mentioned by Thomas?
Yes, coyotes being the most prevalent, and it's also well known within the subdivisions that are just north of us as well. It's common for our neighbors to see coyotes that travel even through subdivisions now in our area.
Yep. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to, if Thomas, I mean, what I'm noticing in Ontario is that, I mean, yes, there is a lot of land for grazing animals and there's horticulture as well, but there's also a lot of residents. So there, you know, it's a very much a mixed profile of people. And one of the questions that's come through on the chat says, has anyone had experience with a neighbour's non-collared cattle moving through a collared herd? I might just broaden that question a little bit and generally talk about distractions. Have you, and I'm you know, you've got people picking berries and things like that. Have you noticed whether distractions can cause problems?
Great question. We haven't had public interaction yet with cows with our collars. Certainly in years gone by, our strawberry fields are next to some of our, and certainly that north virtual paddock. So yes, there have been cases of Jersey cows are known for being very curious, and they will come over and see what's going on. And then because there looks to be fresh grass on the other side of that fence, they will certainly then rub up against that fence and try to get the new grass. And sometimes that leads to the cows getting out. And I very much appreciate the virtual paddock that we're able to create before they get to that fence line, so that we can draw it maybe a meter or so away from that fence, so that they get a audio signal before they reach that that fence. And that's just one more way that we can have the public on our farm successfully, and really have the best of both worlds happen there, because their jerseys are quite trainable, or known as very intelligent animals, and they have learned quite quickly. We have, in basically within a couple weeks, 90% of our heifers and our mobs were above the 80% audio rate. And that's the rate that they respond to the audio signal before, and don't need a pulse. So very very good question. We try and I guess that's what these collars are designed to prevent is having the public interact too often with our animals, and or at least we will certainly know about it a little bit faster if that were to happen. So more information, and certainly because of the topography and geography of where we are, we've considered other options of drones or but this is by far, I think, our best option currently.
Thanks, Thomas. That's a great answer, and I think generally listening to our customers, a large value proposition is just about peace of mind. So knowing where the animals are and that they're supposed to be there. Right, I haven't seen JC come back online, but I think the plan was to just zip through a few of the questions and comments that we've got. So I've got that panel up on my screen. I can see a question there around the waterproofing of the neck bands or the collars. Zippo, what's the waterproofing rating on the ES1?
Yeah, so it's an IPX7 rating, so it can be completely immersed in water. And this happens all the time, right? So animals come up to a water trough, the neck band goes into the water trough as they're drinking and is completely immersed in the water. If you have dams on the property, the same thing happens there, where the animals will wade all the way into a dam and have the neck band submersed for quite long periods of time without any issues. So the neck band, as you see it, there's actually the construction is a two-part housing. So there's an inner, almost like a pressure vessel that houses the electronics and the battery, and that is completely sealed. And then there are the outer housings which also hold the solar panels in place. So the unit is very resistant to being completely immersed in water.
Perfect. Thanks, Zippo. And that was the right answer.
Whew, I passed.
And we have another question here, which was just up here a little bit further. Zippo, a question for Australia. Are you aware of any movement on getting eShepherd into New South Wales?
Right, yes. So there has been quite a bit of progress with the Minister for Agriculture announcing that they are going to legalise virtual fencing in New South Wales. There is still quite a lot of work to do to put the right regulatory frameworks in place. So the best answer we have at the moment is that possibly by the end of this year, we may see that legislation come into effect and allow allow New South Wales to start virtual fencing. Since that announcement was made, the state of Victoria has made a similar announcement that they will also open up the pathway for virtual fencing to be allowed. Again, we don't know what the timeframes are. When politicians are involved and legislation needs to be changed, the timelines can be very uncertain. So please don't jump at us yet to purchase a system. We are taking registrations. If you are really interested, we can take your details. We can put you into a database. I think we are even taking some pre-orders so you can secure some neck bands if you really want to be, straight off be one of the first customers to be able to use the technology when it does become available. We do anticipate we are going to be inundated with demand when that happens. We have had so much interest from those states for many years that I think there's going to be we're going to have a challenging time when that happens, but a welcome challenge.
Absolutely. So thanks for that, Zippo. So we are at the end of the hour, and JC has texted me and said that she would really appreciate it if we were able to wrap up in her absence. I'm just going to finish off with answering one more question, and I'm going to throw to Brandon. Brandon, I can see you're still there. I've just got one quick question about the LoRa system, or the system that uses the base station towers. So Mary and Thomas, they were both using the cellular form, and Brandon, I know that you were using the base station or tower form. And the question was, when using the tower form of eShepherd, are you able to have more than one mob feeding off that tower signal at the same time?
Short answer is yes. At the very beginning, we had 2 or maybe even 3 mobs at one point off a single tower before we ever set up a second one. Right now, we've got a few towers up, but we have 7 mobs going at the moment just due to calving. And likely there's at least a few mobs all talking to the same tower at any one time. So yeah, a tower
Perfect.
can handle multiple mobs.
That's great. Look, I'm not going to keep all you good folk any longer. eShepherd, the whole eShepherd team, really appreciate you all coming together in this sort of forum to share ideas and questions and answers. We think it's very, very useful. And we'll be holding another one probably in another 4 weeks. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you very much for your attendance. We will continue to answer the questions in the chat that we haven't answered. And yeah, have a very enjoyable day or a very nice night.
Great, thanks, Charles. I might just also jump in and just let people know that this meeting was recorded. It will go into, I will upload it to YouTube, and we will send out a link to that so you can rewatch the recording, and along with the answers to some of the questions that we didn't get around to answering this time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good day. Bye.